Hello, and welcome to this, the third in our series of online resources on social impact investment readiness. My name is Jeremy Harris, and I am a Director in the Office of Social Impact Investment, and I will be taking you through this session. Let me start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which this video is being recorded, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. As you can see, we've broken this series of videos into 4 parts. In part 1, we discussed the concept of what social impact investment is, as we in the New South Wales Government define it. In part 2, we introduced the social impact investment principles and started to work our way through the social impact investment framework. In this presentation, we continue to work through the framework, and in particular, we look at defining your service and outcomes measurement. So let's get started. As we discussed in the previous video, there are 3 elements to the social impact investment framework. These are 1. Defining the problem, 2. Providing a solution, and 3. Addressing feasibility. In this video, we cover the topic of providing a solution, and specifically, we look at the elements of your proposed service, your target outcomes, how to measure those outcomes, and the different forms of evidence that can be used to substantiate your outcomes and impact. Your program needs to be designed to produce a change or outcome. A useful tool to communicate the story of your program and how it works and why it works is a program logic. A program logic outlines the causal relationship between the program inputs and activities and the expected outcomes and impact you aim to achieve. It is a simple tool to bring rigour and focus on the key aspects of your program and measuring its impact. A program logic can be defined as a visual representation of how a program or service works, as shown in the diagram. When constructing the program logic for your intervention, it is important to follow 5 key principles, as they will help you fill in the details of your program story. First, define the purpose and objective of the program. What do you want to achieve? Second, bring together the existing evidence about the program. How and why is it expected to work? This can be a mix of qualitative and quantitative evidence. Third, consider how the program in the proposed setting will have an impact. For example, what is the path or client journey somebody will take through your program? What is the social need you are trying to address and the change you want to achieve? Fourth, having defined your activities and outputs, you need to identify what should be measured to provide quantitative evidence of impact. And finally, you need to provide the link between identifiable, measurable indicators and the activities and outcomes that you are looking to achieve through your program. Here is an example program logic which is taken from our technical guide to outcomes measurement, which you can find on the OC website. You can see that it takes you through from the beginning of your thinking of a service or a program from inputs through to the long-term sustainable impacts that your program is designed to deliver. There are a number of examples of what constitutes an input, an activity, an output and an outcome at each of the stages. But the important thing to remember here is that each of these steps needs to have a causal link or a relationship that leads from the initial inputs through to the final impact that you are looking to achieve through your program. Let's look at some examples from here in New South Wales of the social impact investments and their program logics. We have the Resolve Mental Health Social Benefit Bond, the New PIN Family Restoration Social Benefit Bond, and the On-Track Social Impact Investment looking to reduce reoffending from parolees. As you can see from these examples, each have clear inputs which are used to deliver the outputs for the programs. And these outputs are then clearly linked to the outcomes that we are trying to achieve. We then use these to measure the impact that the programs have had against a counterfactual. And we'll talk about counterfactuals later in the video. Let me walk you through the Resolve program logic. For Resolve, the service provider works very, very closely with the clinical staff at the local health district. The inputs for this program are case coordination, residential support provided by qualified staff, and also non-clinical outreach for other services. These are used to provide the intensive residential care support, linkages to the support packages, and also to look at peer support programs that can be provided to clients. Each of these then links to the outcome, which is improved mental health in a community setting and the avoidance of unnecessary hospital presentations and days in intensive clinical support. Now that we've walked through how to define your proposed service and how to develop a strong program logic for your service or program, let's now look at the types of evidence that you can use to support your program logic, the outcomes that you will look to achieve through your program or service, and the different types and ways that you can measure both quantitative and qualitative measures. Let's now take a look at evidence. As we know, the heart of social impact investment is being able to measure and pay for outcomes. It is therefore necessary to provide the evidence base for the proposed program. It's important to note that not all evidence is equal. The less rigorous or objective evidence is, the harder it is for an accurate measurement of the outcomes to be made. In many cases, organisations rely on their expert opinions or feedback from clients and case studies as evidence of the effectiveness of their program. However, what we don't have here, and why those forms of evidence are the weakest, is the comparison to another like group of people or communities. It is therefore important, from a social impact investment perspective, that the evidence of the effectiveness of your program is supported through more rigorous randomised controlled trials or systematic reviews. As I noted in the previous slide, outcome measurement is important because it is at the heart of social impact investing. Achieving outcomes is the basis on which our contracts are designed and how we make payments. This means the government will only pay for the outcomes if it is an agreed outcome and it can measure the achievement of that outcome. In order for an outcome to be measurable, it needs to be able to demonstrate an observable change in individuals, groups, communities or organisations. To consider the use of interim outcomes to show whether progress is being made towards a longer term outcome and the long-term impacts that your program is designed to deliver. The following attributes should be considered when developing the outcome measurement for your proposal. An outcome must be simple. For example, reducing recidivism. They must be objective. Again, somebody has either reoffended or they have not reoffended. An outcome metric needs to be timely. They need to be thoughtful. They need to be able to assist agencies and service providers in understanding whether the program is having the desired outcomes or whether there needs to be a change. Similar to being objective, the outcomes need to be reliable. We need to be able to have confidence that they are showing the true change. And finally, we need to be able to collect the data in order to measure the impact. Major consideration when measuring outcomes is attribution. And for that, we need a counterfactual. A counterfactual is the ability to obtain a reliable estimate of what would have happened in the absence of the program or service. When we establish a counterfactual, we provide an unambiguous and quantifiable estimate of the impact the service had, and depending on the rigorousness of that counterfactual, we may be able to include considerations such as how much of the outcome was caused by the program and how much was due to other factors. As you can see, there are different types of counterfactual, and depending on the type of counterfactual used, the level of accuracy and also the complexity increases. In some cases, a historical baseline may be appropriate where that baseline is fairly consistent. In others, we may need to move into looking at a randomised control trial or a matched control group where there is either an absence of a historical baseline or that baseline varies considerably. When we use a control trial or a control group, we look to measure the outcomes for those individuals or communities in comparison to the outcomes for the individuals or communities who are receiving the support services. To illustrate the concept of counterfactuals, let me walk you through this example. You can see from the chart that we have three elements. On the blue line, we have the measurement of the impact of the services. On the green line, we have the counterfactual that was used at the start of the service. And on the red line, we show the measurement of the counterfactual or the control group once we were able to develop that counterfactual group. In this example, when the service commenced, while there was a static or a steady baseline, the development of a live counterfactual group has resulted in a much more accurate measurement of the impact that the services had delivered. In this instance, you get a much more rigorous measurement of the social impact that is achieved, as well as the financial benefits that are delivered through a program. Again, let's look at the outcomes measurement in the New South Wales examples. For our Resolve social benefit bond, the target is to reduce unnecessary hospital stays by 25% compared to a comparison group. The individuals in the program are matched using a propensity score matching process with individuals who aren't receiving the service. That enables the Ministry of Health and the service provider to provide an accurate measurement of the level of service usage of the people in the program against a similarly matched set of individuals. In the case of the new PIN social benefit bond, we are looking to measure the number of children who are safely and successfully restored with their families. For the first 3 years of this program, similar to the previous slide, we used an historic baseline. The reason for this was that we needed time to build up a significantly large comparison or control group. In this instance, we were able to develop a much more accurate measurement of the impact and the outcomes that the new PIN program is delivering. In the instance of the on-track program, the primary outcome is the reduction in recidivism and reincarceration within 12 months from a parolee's release. Similarly, we are using a fixed control rate for incarceration based on our very detailed historical data. As we move through the program, the intention is to move from that historical baseline to a measured counterfactual as developed by a randomly selected control group. In each of these examples, we can see the simple, objective, timely, thoughtful, reliable and collectible elements of the outcomes measurement process that we use in our social impact investments. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found the presentation interesting and engaging and useful in your considerations of developing a social impact investment proposal. Should you wish to learn more about outcomes measurement, designing a program logic and defining your program, I encourage you to go onto our OSI website, which is osii.nsw.gov.au, and take a look at the resources that we have to support you in these areas. Again, thank you, and I look forward to presenting the final video in this series.